Okay. All right. Any other questions on any of that? Okay. And then the next thing I wanted to get into was Michael Griffin and I have been emailing back and forth. Michael brought a couple or one issue, a couple aspects of one issue to my attention, and so like I said, we've been emailing back and forth, and I'll let him explain it in a minute. But it basically has to do with respect to the dirt roads, which obviously those of you who have been on the committee since the beginning, which is I guess 4 of us, remember we had a lot of discussions initially about the dirt roads, and we kind of as a committee had decided for the November election that we kind of felt that that the people who lived on those dirt roads were paying the same taxes as the rest of us, but were getting less benefit than the rest of us, which was one of the reasons why we felt that we wanted to do all the dirt roads. And then we had our town hall, and then at the town halls, we heard a couple of things. There were a lot of people who said, it's not a lot of people, but there were people who the last time we paved the dirt road, which I think was about 10, 12 years ago. Scott, correct me if I'm wrong.
It's about right. Yeah, lacrosse.
Yeah, and they were saying, well, why do we had to pay for ours? Why don't these people have to pay for theirs? And again, as a committee, and you guys can speak for yourselves, but as I remember, we all kind of had the same opinion, and I brought this up publicly in all the town halls, saying that my personal opinion was that was really bad policy because everybody's using the roads, and there are some roads where we have more non-residents who live on that road using that particular road, and so I personally felt it was bad policy, and I think several others of you did as well. And again, that was part of the reason why we went that way. And then we also heard, from especially from the people, in the quote unquote, estate section, who really wanted to keep their roads as dirt roads the way they were. And so after the defeat, we at our first meeting, we decided to scale back dramatically the dirt roads as a starting point for our plan B, and we decided to just do the major ingresses, those dirt roads that were major thoroughfares coming in, entrances into the subdivision, which namely brought it down from 1.7 miles of road to about a little over 0.4 miles of road, which was Meadowbrook and El Dorado. And then at our second to last meeting, Michael made the suggestion when we were talking about how to try to maximize roads maximize the mileage while still staying under 4 mils of eliminating the dirt roads or reducing them. And so I presented at the last meeting that I took off El Dorado, and the reason, again, as I explained back then, that I took the El Dorado off was because it's 1A construction versus the 1B on Meadowbrook, so it's $300,000 more per mile, which equated to about $150,000 more. And so we ended up going up with leaving Meadowbrook on there. And so but Michael had 2 concerns, and again, I'm going to turn it over to you in 1 second, Michael. One was, why are we doing dirt roads in the first place? And then the second one was, he felt that there might be a perception issue because, I live adjacent to one of those dirt roads, actually the dirt road that was left on there, Meadowbrook. And so it may look like favoritism or something like that. And so obviously, with the contentious nature of the last election, we don't want the conversation to get derailed. So if there is that perception, do we, even though I feel that we kind of came into this as kind of from an objective step-by-step basis, other people may not see it that way. And so do we get rid of all dirt roads? Do we swap, El Dorado back out for Meadowbrook? Do we leave Meadowbrook? Another option could be, since we as a committee are going to make the recommendation of roads to the council, for the council to then approve the roads that get done each year, one option could be that we leave both Meadowbrook and El Dorado on as, eligible roads with all the other eligible roads in the eligible road list. And then the committee can hash this out and, make a recommendation to council. So those are some of the options, but I don't want to speak for Michael. I just wanted to kind of give background. Some of that was for your benefit, Michael, because I know, you weren't on the committee back in November. I know I gave you a little bit of that background in the email, but it's a little easier to do when we're talking. But so I'll turn it over to you and let you kind of be more detailed about, the concerns that you have.
Right. I guess the concern that I had was one that, it seemed like all of the options that came out as far as what roads to include were being done by Bruce. And the one that always seemed to show up on there was the one that's adjacent to Bruce's road. And I know that Bruce's wife was very vocal about wanting that road paved during the election last time. And it just didn't seem to me like, I had a concern that, people will perceive it. And I even had the perception that, is everything being done on the up and up? Because, this one segment seems to show up on every list that comes up. And also when taking a look at the, the frontages on the two roads that I guess were the last two that were left, I counted 17 houses that front El Dorado, and I think there's 2 or 3 on Meadowbrook. And I know that the one's a little longer, but I mean, if you're talking about, sharing the cost of the ditching, if you've got 17 houses, you're more apt to get those people, 17 houses that contribute to that versus, if there's only 2 or 3, who's going to pay for the ditching? I guess it probably wouldn't even get done in that case.
Right.
It's going to be too expensive. So, like I said, I didn't think we should include the dirt roads at all, but I don't think there should be any language on there that says a specific road should be done, because there isn't for any other roads. It just says, a certain number of the, 1A or 1B. And so I just think, I don't think there should be any specific segment of a road called out in the proposal. And I think, it just seems, Bruce has a lot of sway over, what's going on with the committee, and, he seems to be picking which roads are included. And, so I just expressed that concern. And I also expressed the concern that I have that it's, 10 years is too long. There's, still a lot of uncertainty with the economy and the other infrastructure needs that the city has, like, the water mains and things like that. So.
I like the idea of maybe not calling out obviously specific roads on the proposal, and then like Bruce was saying, we just kind of make those decisions, assuming we have an approved proposal or proposed millage increase, and I can go from there. Is there any way we could? I mean, I don't know any of those residents terribly much on those 2 streets. Is there some way we could survey them to see if they would? The majority would want or not want,
yeah, I mean, we could. The thing is, though, I think you would, I think you would have to, and again, we debated this, back in, before the November election. It's not just, what that, no, I was going to say, it's not just those people that use the road, though. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of other people who may or may not want it paved.
It would be those people that are paying for ditches. So.
Right. That's true too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that idea as well, of kind of not calling out which roads are going to be done and just leaving it open for further discussion by the committee or by the if city council has opinions or whatever. I think it's important that we do some of the dirt roads, because I agree that, those are city roads. Everybody uses those roads. I think we should look at them, and if they need repair, I think we should consider repairing those as well. So I like the idea of having, it's a tiny bit, it's a small amount of road. I think it's good to have that in there. But I agree that we don't have to necessarily call out which one it is right now. We can think about that and figure that out. later on, and that'll stop any perception. I don't have any concerns about about Bruce pushing that for his own benefit. I don't have any concerns at all. But why have the perception even brought up? I guess or why have the question even be brought up? And by not naming the road, we can leave it up to the committee later or the council, and it'll be a joint decision, and there shouldn't be any issues there.
And I would think almost that, you know, if there was a segment, say Saratoga down there, you know, that kind of goes through if you go past that park. But what if, you know, someone in Saratoga said, hey, we've all signed, we'll pay for the ditches, we want to have ours done, and, you know, left out if we're going to include gravel roads and just name one specific.
Hey, Scott, is there a way to rate or assess dirt roads, kind of like we do for asphalt and concrete?
You know what they are now? The Pacer method that we've been using just came out with rating gravel roads.
Oh, perfect.
We did your roads, it's been a year or two now. But yeah, we are starting to be able to rate gravel roads based on a Pacer method.
Well, maybe we can start using that, and that way we just go off the top of the list and work our way down, which might be an option.
We did, Hugo. I mean, that was the thing that I talked about earlier. You know, when I kind of tried to increase the overall mileage by reducing the dirt roads, I took off the 1A because it was more expensive and left the 1B, which came from the Pacer ratings.
Okay.
Like the El Dorado was like a 1A, right? Is that right?
Yeah.
And so that was, but that was more expensive. So it'd fit better if we had a, you know, less expensive dirt road that we could repair as part of this plan. So.
Right, and I do, you know, I agree with Mike and Salim and Mike, I guess. You know, you know, I have no problem not naming the roads. You know, just treat them like the other roads. The only reason why those roads were named was because originally we said, let's just back it up to the ingress roads, and those were the only two ingress roads that we had, so we were treating them by name. But, you know, I do like the thought of just putting them, you know, on the eligible road list. And I believe in the packet that I sent to you this morning, Scott Ringler and I kind of worked last week to update the eligible road list and got all the eligible roads marked, so we can just leave those two roads on there. And, you know, and maybe, you know, I could probably find the time to do this, or if somebody else wants to volunteer, you know, that's fine too. But, you know, it's not that hard to walk to 17 houses. I can just ring the bells and see what, just for our benefit, you know, see what their attitudes are. Again, I think we have to consider everybody beyond them as well who use that road, but I think it might provide some useful information, you know, to us as we go forward, you know, assuming this gets approved, you know, by council, and we go forward as a committee to decide what roads to do. That can provide us some valuable information. So if everybody says no, leave it alone, then, you know, that might sway our opinion towards not doing those two roads, or one of those two roads. That sounds fair? I mean, pros, cons?
Yeah, sounds fair to me.
Could you just summarize again then where we ended up on that?
Okay, so we'll put those two roads, leave them on as eligible roads, so they're eligible under the proposal to be roads that are repaired, and then as a group then sit down and try to make our recommendations each year as to which roads are being done, we'll include those roads in the mix and try to decide between us. You know, if at a given point we feel that one of those two roads should be done, you know, we could make that recommendation, and then not only does it have to essentially be blessed by us, and this is kind of one of the things that I like about the way that we structured the proposal. There's kind of two blessings in there. You know, we make the recommendation, and then council then has to approve it. So it's kind of like a double check. So you know, it helps, as you said, Mike, keep it on the up and up. And then in the interim, oh, go ahead.
No, I guess I don't know why we would limit it to just those two roads.
Well, I'm certainly open to discussing that and adding other roads back in. I mean, we had just made that decision, after talking about it after the election, to just bring it down to the two ingress roads. But if we want to add back the other dirt roads, I don't have a problem with that. I mean, the one thing that will do, if we do add those back, then it's got more eligible roads, so we have more potential people who may vote for the project. So I kind of like that.
But even if we do that, we're still limiting the mileage to what we've got in the proposal, right? Or is that flexible, or is that set?
Yeah, so we'll keep the mileage the way that we have it, so
Could you limit it, just put a dollar amount instead of the mileage? I mean, you might be able to get something more for less, or, because like I said, if you don't end up doing the ditches because there's only a couple houses, and then, you have 17 people that are paying for the ditches, then, maybe the city's better off in that situation and, paying a little more and maybe getting a little bit less somewhere else. Because I guess we decided we wouldn't do, if they weren't going to they didn't want to pay for the ditches, then some of the roads, you just go ahead and do them anyway without doing the ditches, right? If it was too costly.
Yeah.
And I used to have a feeling that one would be too costly because you've only got 2 or 3 houses on it, right? So the ditch is not going to get done there. But if you go on a road that has, 10 houses or 15 or 17, you might end up getting the ditches done when you do the road, because you've got more, people to split it up. And
yep, and that's all part of, I think, what we're going to have to work on, as a group. We're going to have to roll up our sleeves and kind of get creative to figure out, what roads do we recommend, but we have to take the ditches into account, see if we can make some special assessment districts. And like Michael said, try to arrange it so that we also, fix the most amount of ditches as we can as well. Yeah. Now, I guess the one question is if we start adding back the dirt roads as eligible roads, should we include Rackham in that? Because the people in Rackham were pretty vocal about not wanting their road done.
I think you could leave it in there as eligible, but that doesn't mean it'll get done. I mean, if obviously if they are not supportive of it, but I think you probably heard from a couple of people that were vocal that they didn't want it done, but I know some people that live over that way that did want their, that were for it. So you just never know.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that makes more work for you, Scott. Can you add those back to the map and then give me an updated spreadsheet and then also give me another map showing which ones were added?
So I'm going to add in all the gravel roads.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and then so the map, the spreadsheet, and then a second map, or however you did it last time, so I know what was added, so I can add it to my existing spreadsheet. Okay. Yeah, and I do like that because again, I'm hopeful that that this will get debated among the residents for its merits and not get sidetracked. And again, I didn't, Michael brought that up to me, and I initially I didn't even know who he was talking about. So I don't want there to be a perception issue that this didn't happen in an objective, fair way, because that's the last thing I want to be focused on, as we go forward. So. All right, so anything else?
Bruce,
Oh,
yeah, I have a question. Once we do these changes and before this proposal is finalized, are we looking at another town hall, or are we all done with town halls?
I think we're done with town halls at this point. I mean, we did three of them. and then, we did a much better job, I think, this time of publicizing our meetings. We had a much better turnout. People were aware of this because of the November election. So I don't think people can say that they, didn't know this was going on. So I think at this point, as far as next steps, I will finalize the proposal this week, early next week. I'll get a copy out to all of you guys to review. And then probably what I'll do is I'll just swing by, social distancely appropriate, and just get the signatures. Now, Michael has indicated that he doesn't support it, and I think we know that because he wanted something shorter, and I respect that, and that's why we brought him on the committee, because we knew he was against the one in November, and I do think that he's been extremely helpful at crafting this proposal. A lot of great suggestions and a lot of great help, but we didn't get it to a point where he supports it, and I like I said, I respect that. So I'll bring it by for everybody to sign, and then on July 27th will be the meeting that will go in front of council, and I would invite all of you guys to show up and be there in case council has questions. I'm sure some people are probably, some of the council members probably are going to want to ask you, Mike, why you didn't support it, because they're going to want to find out what the the pros and the cons are, and
is that going to be a Zoom meeting or an in-person?
I
think I'm going to be up north that day, but
July meetings are still Zoom.
Okay.
Yeah. So and so that's what we'll do. I did have one other question. Well, actually, let me see. Is there anything else with the dirt roads? This sounds like a plan. Everybody's happy with that? Okay. One other thing I just wanted to bring up is, we talked about with respect to the ditches, that the committee will exercise its judgment in making its recommendation to council related to streets where it's just cost prohibitive. And in the last meeting, I put that spreadsheet together, and I just kind of was playing around. I pulled a number out of a hat. I said $400, and I, kind of did some calculations to say, if we capped it at $400, and you guys remember that. So I guess the question that I have is, should I put some number in there specifically, saying, any situation where the cost is, for a particular special assessment district will be more than $400 per year, we won't do those ditches? Or should I just say, more generally that, the committee will look at the cost of, potential special assessment districts, and, may make the decision that certain special assessment districts, due to the density and packing of the homes and so forth, may not be required, and they'll make those recommendations to council for approval. So I guess the overall question is do I put some type of threshold in there, and if so, what do we use? Or do I just keep it more general, saying, the committee will use its discretion and then let council bless their discretion, as a secondary check?
Maybe you could kind of do a hybrid there and say, in the event that it exceeds $400, can contact the homeowners and see if they're willing to pay whatever it is. But if it's more than $400, then there is a possibility that we could waive, doing the ditching or something like that.
Okay.
I don't know.
I kind of like the idea of having a number in there, the threshold, just because then the residents will know, like, we're considering it. If there's nothing in there, I don't know if people might think that there is some uncertainty as to the cost, and in their heads it might seem like it could go up even higher or get to some. If you put something in there, at least it puts it in people's heads that, okay, they're looking at something at this cost that's reasonable. I know what they're talking about, and then there's next steps if it's more than that.
Yeah, and I like that. I like that, Mike. I like saying that we'll ask the potential district, you know, even if it's more than $400, you know, do you want to do this? Because they may still say yes if they're a street that has, you know, really bad ditches. Plus the fact, you know, as Scott mentioned at our last meeting, just the fact that we have all that equipment mobilized will make that project cheaper than if they were to just, you know, get tired of it 5 years down the line and say, hey, we got to do our ditches. So they may as a neighborhood say, yeah. So that's a good idea. Okay, anyone else?
Yeah, I like it.
Okay. All right. So I think I've got enough to finalize everything. Yeah, I will try to get this early next week to you guys, and then you know, we go from there. So anybody else have any comments? I thought I saw something pop up from public comment, so we can go to the public comment. Anybody else have any other comments in general or specifically to what we talked about tonight?
No, I like the plan. It's good.
Okay. All right, well, thanks.
I think there was something in the chat that popped up.
Yeah. So Cheryl, do you want to open it up for public comment, please?
If you would like to make a comment or question, if you would please raise your hand.
Like there is a comment in the chat from Dennis Kingsbury.
Can
So
you see
maybe
that,
he
Bruce?
Yeah, because I think there should be other reasons besides cost per home to skip ditches. So Dennis, if your phone is live, Cheryl, you can unmute him. You know, if you want to give us some examples of
Okay.
Whoops, we lost you, Dennis. Started to hear you, but then you he says he's muted.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, our road, which is San Jose Boulevard, has underground. They moved the ditch underground, and for half of the street. And also, I just think that there are some streets that don't need ditches. I don't think our street needs a ditch. So I'm just saying that I cannot buy that every street needs the ditches worked on, and that cost is not the only prohibiting factor.
Yeah, Dennis, I know you weren't at our prior meetings. We definitely discussed this. I mean, there are definitely streets that that you know that will get paid. Well, first of all, let me step it back because I don't know if you probably haven't seen the proposal, but basically what we're proposing is that the only ditches that are going to get done are going to be ditches that are associated with streets that get done through the street program. And then it's going to be set up by the cost of that particular street. So unlike the November proposal where everybody was paying for the cost of all ditches, you know, we had a lot of people saying, well, our roads are fine. Why do we have to pay for everybody else's ditches? And so we kind of went with an approach, you know, for a variety of reasons where we'll only ask the ditches to be done on those streets that are getting repaid. And as part of that, you know, discussion, you know, we talked about the fact that there are a lot of ditches that, you know, are either, you know, working fine, or like you said, underground, you know, so for example, Avila has an underground system that, you know, we know of. I think there are some others as well. Or there may be some ditches that require just very, very minimal touching to get them, you know, a tree root needs to be routed out, you know, because it's blocking the whole street ditches. So we're aware that there will be ditches that, you know, won't need to be touched, even though their roads are getting paved. There's one other thing I was going to say. It just popped in and out of my head.
Bruce,
Also,
I'd like to ask what part of San Jose are you on?
I'm between Bloomfield and
He's east of Bloomfield.
yeah.
It's the kind of block where it ends down, where it curves down there into
Sanford
California.
Court.
Sanford Court. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm in that same block with you, and I don't have a ditch.
That's what I'm saying.
So on my end of the street, no, mine isn't underground. It's filled in. So I need to have the ditching completed. So some may not have an issue with their ditches on the street, but my ditch and my culvert are completely gone.
Right, and the idea is the special assessment districts that we'll be setting up are working together as a system. You know, they're not going to be disparate. You know, like you've got, you know, one's on the north side of 696 and one's on the south side of 96 that are in the same, you know, special assessment district. They're going to be contiguous streets where, you know, they work together, and so therefore the costs of getting that whole system for that whole district back together is split among those neighbors. So in some cases it'll be less costly, some places it'll be more costly. Oh, I just remember what I was going to say earlier. Yeah, and so, you know, we did put together some estimates of ditch costs, you know, based on the number of homes on a given, you know, linear portion of the street. But, you know, we caveated that pretty heavily by the fact that the actual cost can vary greatly from the estimate depending on the condition of the ditch. So if, you know, you've got a street where the neighbors have done a good job of keeping their ditches, you know, in code and working, you know, more than likely they're going to have a much lower cost than what the estimate is. And for those that, you know, where you know, like Joe's example where, you know, her ditch got filled in, I'm guessing probably by a previous owner, you know, that street may have, you know, more costly. So, but yeah, we definitely will be looking at the condition of the ditches, and we do realize that some streets we won't require them to do their ditches because they don't need to be done.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Yeah, and just so you know, Dennis, because again, I know you're coming into this, you know, without having been at a lot of our other meetings. Once we get the proposal finalized, you know, Cheryl will put all of our documents up on the web so that you can, you know, kind of look through them in detail. And, you know, more than likely, well, not more than likely, we will, if this is approved by council, we'll have, you know, additional town halls like we did last year. We'll do an education campaign, give people a chance to ask questions, voice opinions, and you know, and so forth. So it'll be very much like we did last time around. Is there anyone else on who I don't know how you have to look to see how many people are there. All right, anybody else? Anything else? All right, well, I'm glad we're getting close. Again, thanks everybody for, you know, all the work that you guys have done and the advising and so forth. And I will try to get you something early next week.
Right. Thanks, Chris.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Have a good night.
Yep, have a good night.
Good night.
Have a good night.